Humans of the cardboard, welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today we are talking about a really sick deck idea moving forward. Something that really hasn't been able to exist until the very near future of Yu-Gi-Oh, which is really cool. And that deck is a FIEND-PILE. We've seen so many different pile decks in the past. Some of them you don't even think of as pile decks, but because they're actually made up of just kind of the best cards in their individual type, we kind of don't really refer to them all as pile decks. And so this is the first time Fiend's been playable. We know that there are Cybers ones. Dragon Link is essentially just Dragon Pile, right? We've seen all these types of decks, right? Dinosaurs, even reptiles, plants is a good one now. There's a bunch of them, but I think Fiend finally walks into that territory a little bit. Do I think it's perfected? It's the best one of the bunch? Maybe not, especially not because it's going to be the first time it's even a thing at all. But I do think there's some really cool stuff to mess with. So let's hop into Dueling Book here. I'm going to show you kind of most of the cool cards that I have here, just to at least get started with the idea that I think would definitely be a good place to start. So here's the idea. There are four main Fiend archetypes out there that I think can contribute to this deck for the most part, and then there are a couple of generic Fiend cards that I think also exist that can do their part to contribute as well. The first four main engines, of course, are Labyrinth. This is by itself, like the pure variant, is already like a borderline top 5 deck in the game. We'll see where it lands after this most recent ban list, but yeah, like has floated around the 5th best deck in the game. That's already a really good sign. The fact that like the furniture has become generic discard outlets that allow you to be very flexible and get access to your trap cards. And I think it also allows a deck like this to kind of walk around similar to what Outlich was for a long time, which is just like a really solid, strong backbone to a deck that like to where the rest of your stuff is kind of the oomph, but this is the backbone where, like, worst case scenario, start playing Labyrinth, right? And try to control the board, and if everything else breaks down, you can default into this playstyle and kind of hit that control engine and go from there. But also this engine does help you put bodies on board. It's still pretty solid. They the furnitures rotate back into hand to continually give you hand advantage, and the deck just pluses a ton. So I really like that engine to start. Secondly, you have Burning Abyss. I have a very small Burning Abyss engine here, but I do believe there's a world where we could try to push it harder, do some more slightly standard Burning Abyss plays where we're like sending Graph, summoning Seer, and then we're like continuing on with Link plays. The only awkward thing about that is that the new central piece that kind of ties everything together is Unchained. We'll talk about that in a second. But Cherubini's a fairy, and that does make for a very awkward point in the deck, in that because Cherubini is a fairy, when you go to like a lot of the pivot points would be link off Cherubini for the Unchained Link 2, but you just straight up can't. It's not a Fiend, even though the rest of the archetype is, and so that becomes awkward. But there may be ways to work around that. But yeah, I think that's worth mentioning. But yeah, other than that, it is still, just keep in mind we have the Seer and the Graph here. Plus, I've already been messing around with a Labyrinth build that plays Skarm and Farfa. They work well with Tour Guide, and obviously making Cherubini to dump them, very good. Also great dumps off of Ghastly Glitch and Fiend Griefing, which are down below. So very cool. Even if you're just playing these three, still really good utility. From there, you move into the next one, which is Unchained. I think this is the glue that's really going to tie everything together, and particularly the two new cards, Unchained Soul King Yama. This card takes any two Fiend monsters generically. On summon, he adds any Unchained monster from deck or grave to hand, which becomes most likely this guy, Unchained Soul Shavara. He has a similar extension effect as Aruha, where it can pop either a Fiend you control or a set card you control to special himself. And then when he is actually just sent to grave generically, he lets you set an Unchained spell or trap straight from deck. So then you're able to get access to something like Escape, and it works out really nicely. So the basis here is that you're trying to link off Shavara for Unchained Soul of Rage. That allows you to essentially steal an opponent's monster and quick link off with it. And then you also have this to pop a card. So just making Soul King Yama is going to get you to 2 solid interruptions. And to be honest, even Even the Soul of Rage could lead to a third interruption as well. So really, really cool package that turns any 2 generic fiends on the field plus like another fiend to pop into some really strong value, which I love. That's like the strongest point of the deck, I think. That really ties it all together. The last thing to mention is Dark World. This is a very small package I'm messing with here, and I think the one thing I might be missing is Dark Corridor. That's their new spell card. It's not on Dueling Book yet. It adds a Dark World monster, then discards one. It would just be 3 more copies of Genta, essentially. I think if you don't have that card, you don't play Snow. But if you do, it allows you to go, like, Corridor into Snow, pitch Snow, and then Snow get Genta. That way you don't have to pitch something else from hand if you don't have a good discard. So keep that in mind. And then Genta, if you don't know, he sends himself to grave from hand to get Gates of Dark World. Then you Gates of Dark World, banish Genta, to discard another fiend and draw a card, so it cycles one, but then when Genta's banished, he special summons himself back to the field. So this is, without normal summon, a fiend on field, plus a cycle, and then you still keep Gates of Dark World up, which means later on in turns, it can continue to help you cycle, as well as giving a 300/300 buff to all your fiends. So it's still really good value, I think, especially when the new main idea for the deck is just get to Yama, and you will get good value. So that free fiend body plus a draw is pretty good. So that's it for all the actual main engines. There's a ton of other decent fiend cards that are worth mentioning here. I obviously have Tour Guide. This is the main normal summon for this build. It gets you really good value. So you go Tour Guides. Going first, you'd go Tour Guide summon Sangan, link them off for either Soul King Yama or Cherubini. And then Sangan could get you either a hand trap or a Santa Claus or even one of your Labyrinth small guys just to load them in hand. It really can get you a ton of different stuff. Even Farfa, if you're going to have one of these guys already, to discard the Farfa on the opponent's turn. It searches almost anything. You could even get another Tour Guide for follow-up, right? So that's really good. And then obviously Soul King Yama pops off from there. The other thing that's really cool is being able to go for just more value, more just pluses, I guess, in another way. Tour Guide for Sangan, go ahead and make Cherubini, and then Cherubini dump Skarm. So you're getting a search off Skarm on the end phase, you're getting a search off Sangan, and you still get the Cherubini, so that protects your board a little bit. It's cool value there. So there's a couple other targets that are really interesting, particularly these. Oh, I moved her down, okay. Dunmag Akathos is cool. When he's sent from field to grave, he searches a level 8 fiend, so that could search either Lady or Lovely. You don't really want to search Lovely, though, so mainly Lady. And I guess if you do play it, the other Unchained guy who's kind of like a hand trap in hand, you can search him as well, which is pretty decent. But again, if you play it, do we really want to play Sangan plus Akathos? I don't know about that. Fiendish Rhino Warrior. This is a really cool card as well. There's a couple of other fiends that are good to be sent to grave, but they're just not level 3. So making Cherubini means you could dump Rhino, and then Rhino dump the right one. That's the level you really want. Specifically stuff like Shavara, right? Dump Shavara, and then Shavara can set you your escape if you maybe your opponent hand trapped your Soul King Yama, so you didn't get to search him. Something like that could be cool. But yeah, Rhino's chilling. Other than that, he's cool. I think he also comes up if you play a bigger BA engine, being able to send, if you can get him onto field, then he keeps everything else from being destroyed, which can come up. I don't know how you're super consistently. I guess Muckraker's there to get him back, but that could come up as well. And then these guys, again, like I said, you'd only be playing them in a heavier BA build, but I think that build gets a little more bricky. These guys really, for how generic their effects really end up being generic, they really do kind of brick up with certain scenarios. So we'll see. And then Dante could come up there doing the Seer loops and potentially getting you to Beatrice as well, which could be good. Archfiend Eris is a really interesting one. So when this card's sent to grave by card effect, it can search any Archfiend card. The 2 main targets would obviously be Ghastly Glitch, pretty good card, pops a card and gets you another send. So you could send something like Farfa for an extra, double interruption, or send a Skarm for follow-up, which is great. Or you could search this card, Simul Archfiends. It's kind of like a poor man's Dimensional Barrier, but a super searchable poor man's Dimension Barrier is almost as good as Dimension Barrier, if you're able to see it that much more often. I still don't think it's a bad card. Could be matchup dependent, but still cool she could definitely be a card to keep an eye on. But the downside to her is she has to be sent by card effects. So you cannot pitch her off of Stovey and Chandraglier. You cannot send her off of Cherubini, unfortunately, even though she does meet the specs for it. She can be sent, but she just won't trigger because these cards send as cost. So you have to send her off of some of the other ways, whether it's one of the traps, but those are so slow, right? Or maybe you play Fiendish Rhino Warrior, so you could send Fiendish Rhino Warrior off of these cards to then get her sent. Stuff like that, but still not the cleanest thing. Underworld Goddess didn't have a space in the extra deck I have here, but still worth noting that it is a Fiend, so you don't get locked out of it. It's a pretty good utility card. And then for the rest of the Unchained stuff, like you could play a bigger package with Abomination's Prison. I mean, just searching Shavara or just like Aruha for just extra bodies that are just decent extenders generically, that could be worth it. But, you know, like I said, needs more testing before we figure that out. And I even think Unchained Soul could be a cool one-off in the deck as well. We talked about Snow and Dark Corridor. And that, I think, summons up most of the main deck generic cards that I think are worth mentioning. Moving to the extra deck real quick. A lot of the main, just best Fiend extra deck cards out there. Muckraker is phenomenal. It's way better in this deck than Unchained or than regular Labyrinth, because the deck just doesn't, you know what I mean, like put enough good stuff in grave and put enough bodies on field to consistently use this card. But this deck absolutely could. Reborning the Unchained links, reborning, you know what I mean, like a DD Deuce King Machinex or something. There are some really powerful cards here that you could reborn off of this to like keep things rotating, which is great. Cherubini, obviously, for, you know, the tour guide plays. Yama, of course, this becomes your main glue card that kind of keeps everything together, keeps your engine all connected. All your engines are kind of touching into each other now a lot more with this card, or at least all of them are getting you to Unchained more than anything. This guy's really cool. Lets you quick link with your opponent's monsters on the opponent's turn. You get to link into this guy on a later turn. He can essentially do that, but not a quick effect. You could also make Unicorn on your opponent's turn. So you get to steal a monster, shuffle it back with Unicorn, and then if something's destroyed and you're able to put another Unchained monster on field, then you get to use Escape to like also pop a card, which is great. And then these cards, so these are just, if you go the rank 3 route, like summon off of Tour Guide going second, you can funnel into a Zeus play, or just make Deuce King Machinex for 2 interruptions, plus a follow-up with like a Skarm being detached, which is pretty good as well. And then Chaos Angel, you probably just have to play it. You have just so many dark monsters. It may not always be the cleanest thing. I mean, most of the time you're probably just relying on the Labyrinth engine to put like one of the 8s and a Stovey Torby on field, but it's also in the realm of possibility where, like, depending on the format, maybe Bestials are playable. You do play a good amount of 4s, so like Bestials plus a 4 could work out. You don't play a ton of 4s, but like getting Gent on field or Ariana plus a Bestial could be pretty good. It's just too generically accessible to not play, so you still probably play it. But yeah, that's really the basis of where we're at right now. Now, this is a super early iteration. This deck only has 13 defensive cards in a 47 card deck. I'm not sure if I feel fully comfortable with that, or if these are even the ones I would go with, so keep that in mind as well. This deck is really cool. I really want to mess with this. I'm already messing with a Labyrinth list that is somewhat close to this, minus obviously the Unchained stuff, because it doesn't really work yet, and some of the Dark World stuff as well, because again, that main engine is just to help funnel you into Yama anyway. So I kind of have a start to this, and I want to get a good feel and like understanding of where the deck is prior to that stuff, and then I want to kind of fill it in and really round the deck out. I really think this could be a really cool deck going forward, and I can't wait to test it out more than I am now. But yeah, that's pretty much what I have for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching, as always. Let me know your thoughts down below on this deck idea. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Where are you at on it? I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts down below on that stuff. But I am out of here for today. Thank you so much for watching, as always. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.